Hey, how's it going, everybody? Shaun here for another edition of Shaun Solo, and today I want to talk about Mad Max. Not the movies, the game. Mad Max came out September 1st, same day as Metal Gear Solid 5, which means I didn't play it until a little while later. Actually, I played it in probably early October because of that wonderful thing called Redbox. Redbox is a great resource for checking out games. It's bringing back kind of the rental mentality, which I miss. I miss the rental mentality. I lost the rental mentality for a long time. For some reason, I would just go to, like, well, I have to figure out a way to buy this game. I really wish that there was more of a robust library on the Redbox, but it's not bad. It's not terrible. I was kind of hoping they'd have Assassin's Creed Syndicate, so I could try that out, because I don't want to buy that. Because I am really on the fence with Assassin's Creed games. So I would have liked to have tried it. Maybe even blown through the story. But anyways, I rented Mad Max. And the reason why I rented it is because, I mean, in general, like, it's a cool idea. Like, I would like to play an open-world Mad Max game, even though a little open-world burned out a little bit. But I wouldn't mind it. It sounds like a cool concept. It's got a decent developer. Avalanche Studios made one of the funnest, craziest open-world action games ever in Just Cause 2. If you haven't played that, I suggest you get yourself a copy of that on PlayStation 3. You can get it for like nothing. It's also on PC, and there's this crazy modded multiplayer version that's fucking insane. I suggest checking out Just Cause 2. It is one of the funnest games, not actually playing the game, like the missions and stuff, fuck that. Just running around, destroying things, and taking stuff over is, like, pure joy. Like, it's a crazy, crazy fun game. So I kind of had some expectations for Mad Max. Not a ton. I know it's had kind of a troubled development history. It was originally going to be for last gen, the PS3 and the Xbox 360, but they felt like hardware limitations were a thing, so they kind of just decided to go straight for the new next gen, because it was supposed to come out 2014, and it was supposed to be, I believe, cross-gen. But I guess the older systems, what they wanted to do, they just couldn't hack it. But it also forced, like, a lot of redesigns. Like, they had to go back to the drawing board a few times with this game. And I'm not sure that it's really present in the game itself, that there's stuff that's rushed or underdeveloped. Like, I don't know if it's really in the game. I don't know what they were going for. But I'll say this about this game. This game reminds me a lot of Watch Dogs. I'm playing through Watch Dogs right now, but I played some hours of Watch Dogs when it first came out, and I really enjoyed it for about 10 hours. Same thing what I'm doing right now. I'm playing through Watch Dogs. I've been streaming it. Maybe I'll probably stream some more later today. But the breadth of there's too much shit to do. It's not focused, and it becomes very tedious and repetitive very quickly. I think Mad Max had a little bit more legs. I had this for like a long weekend. I rented it for like a long weekend. I probably put like 30 to 35 hours into it. And I didn't finish the game. And I don't, like, anytime soon, I don't want to go back to that game. I was so done with that game when I was done with, like, by that 30, 35 hour mark. And a lot of it's just because you were doing the same thing with like, different levels of difficulty, but the same exact thing over and over and over again. And, like, if you wanted to just go through the story missions, like I tried to, the last night I played it, I was like, alright, I'm just going to try to get through the story missions. I can't have that much left. Then there's these fucking grind barriers where I had to go and do all these tedious side shit that I'd already been doing for hours just for fun. But I didn't do it in the right area. Like, you have to clear zones or whatever to make them safer, or, to travel and stuff. And, like, I got to this part where it was telling me I had to grind out, like, an area that I hadn't really messed around too much in. I gotta grind, like, the level down. The enemy presence level. I think it starts at 5 or 6, and then you work it down to, like, 1 or 0. And, at that point, I was like, fuck this. I don't want to keep doing this. I just did this for 30 hours. Like, I don't want to do this anymore. And it's because it was so tedious and repetitive. It's like a lot of these, it's like open world mistakes that a lot of open world games I think are going to start making or have been making, where they like the development objective is like just put as much content as you possibly can into there without really thinking about how it balances out. I mean, if you really enjoy, I mean, I'm somebody I kind of enjoy tedium to a certain degree. Like, I don't mind doing these kind of repetitive tasks and stuff like that, but I mean, maybe it's because I played it like so much of it in a concentrated like period of time. That's definitely gonna affect how I feel about it. For sure, it totally is, because you're gonna burn out a lot faster. You know, a lot of people I think had a similar like situation with The Witcher 3. I didn't. I like stretched out my 120, 150 hour playthrough over like 4 months, like 3 or 4 months. So I didn't get that burnout that I think a lot of people would if they just like mainline that game for 100 hours in like a couple weeks. I think you would probably get burned out. That's my opinion. I'd get burned out. But just Mad Max, I don't know, there's just something, it's all so similar, and it's just like, not only is it just like tedious and repetitive in its own respect, like unto itself, it's also because like if you've played, like I kind of invoked Watch Dogs, if you've played any open world, kind of whatever you want to call it, open world games at all, it's very similar to those already. The one thing it has that a lot of those games don't have or don't do very well, I actually thought the vehicular combat was not terrible. Like, it was kind of fun, but too much of it. Like, it really was a drag where you're trying to get to an objective and you're constantly being attacked by marauders. Like, it takes forever to get anywhere because if you haven't, like, cleared an area enough and you break down their totems or whatever the fuck you want to call them, like, it's just not fun after a while. It's just too much of it. I mean, I'm not usually. I mean, for some people, they're really gonna love it. Some people have really loved it, and I don't fault them for that. I think the reviews for this thing were overly harsh. I think they were holding it to a standard that it couldn't possibly, because a lot of the reviews were about, this thing came up again about no strong female characters, and they specifically cited the fact that Furiosa in the movie Mad Max Fury Road is a strong female character. As if, like, this game was made with that knowledge. Like, it wasn't. George Miller had at least let them see some stuff, because it has, like, the War Boys, and it has kind of some of the similar atmosphere and ideas, like, so some of that stuff is in there, but it's just much more streamlined, like, action-adventure story. It's not, like, that, I don't know, it's not even that, like, it's not that great of a story. But it's not that terrible either. It's kind of rote, but it is what it is. It's kind of your classic, just video game story. They needed a story to hang all this gameplay and all these mechanics on. That's what they did. So to take the game's narrative to task, because it's not like Fury Road, I think is incredibly short-sighted and like unfair. And even though it does have a female character, I guess it has a few female characters, and the only one that they mentioned was there's this girl that's like being basically like a slave woman that you get invested in, like, helping and saving. But she doesn't really have a ton to do with the story, honestly. But there's a woman that owns, like, an outpost that you can go unlock, and, like, that's a strong female character. They don't mention her. Like, this obsession with the right kind of right is really bothersome. And it's not, I don't care that people have that opinion. People have the right to that opinion if they want to. That's fine. But it sucks that it is, like, literally the only opinion you hear, and then it gets parroted by, like, 50 other, like, well-meaning idiots. Like, where's the critical thought? Like, where's the fairness in that? I mean, if people just didn't like the game, then they just didn't like the game. There's some people that you're not going to like this game because it is so derivative of things we've been... And it's not the game's fault, but we've just been playing games like this for the past 5 years. In a really concentrated amount. Ever since Batman Arkham Asylum came out, that kind of like, and then Arkham City, that laid the template for like the combat for these kind of games, like the stealth for that kind of games. They come from the Assassin's Creed games, and they're like Assassin's Creed's on like the fucking 9th iteration. Like, we've been inundated with just these kinds of games. So, I think for people that don't play a ton of games, or haven't played a ton of these open world games, I think you're probably going to like it a lot. Actually, it's really mechanically sound. There's a lot of fun to be had. It is kind of fun, like just like I did for like most of my playthrough, or the time playing it. It was just terrassing around the desert, taking out outposts, having a good time, unlocking shit, and, like, trying to upgrade my car the most, and doing side quests. Like, it was actually a lot of fun for a while. Until I wanted to and then I wanted to play the narrative, the linear narrative, and the game wouldn't let me. And it put it behind, like, a fucking side quest, arbitrarily, like, goalpost thing. It just sucked. And I was like, man, I don't want to do this right now. Like, I just want to play the story. I've just done all this stuff for like 20 hours. Like, I don't want to do anymore right now. I was just hoping I could have some kind of a variety that would, like, you know, a unique mission sets or something that was provided by the narrative. And you don't. The narrative doesn't do that. It's pretty much more the same. And I think that's where the game stumbles a lot for me. But in terms of, like, the story and, like, it's whatever. It's a fucking adventure story. Like, it's, like, you know, I just recently played through the first Uncharted. I Redboxed the Uncharted collection. And I played through the first one. And that game is not great. It doesn't hold up very well, but it's because of, like, it's so derivative, it's so whatever. It's derivative of action movies in the worst ways. It has, like, boring combat. Like, yeah, and a lot of people, like, recognize that stuff when that game came out, but I don't think anybody would be, like, really that harsh. And I guess you could say, hey, it's, like, you know, kind of the first of its kind, and it was a burgeoning genre or whatever. But people usually point to the Uncharted games being, like, the best examples of these kind of action adventures, not only just storytelling, but, like, gameplay. I disagree. I think it's derivative not only of just movies, but of other action games. Like, and it just happened Uncharted was popular. But I don't know. I know that's a little side tangent. But anyways, Mad Max is just not. It's not as bad as you've heard, but it's also not as wonderful. I think if reviewers out there, if you want to put it a numerical value or on some sort of scale, I think it's like 7.5 out of 10 would be fair. Just because of how derivative the game is. It's just derivative. It's just, we've already played it. But, like I said, if you haven't played a lot of these games, you'll probably really enjoy it. You'll probably really dig it. But yeah, it was weird. It's just weird to see, like, how fucking harsh people were on this game. And a lot of it has a direct correlation with the movie coming out, and the movie being as good as it was. I think it just forced people to, I don't know, view it in kind of an unfair lens, which is weird. Not really. Not really. For a lot of these major outlets and stuff, like, I don't, like, you're just, like, you feel like you're playing different games than them. Like, you honestly do. Especially because now, like, most of them have reverted back to this, like, retro, that's kind of what they love, is, like, these retro games and these narrative games that are kind of mediocre, like Until Dawn. I don't know. I don't know what it is. Like, you can't really go, it's really hard to go somewhere and find, like, an honest, like, unbiased opinion about anything these days. It just speaks to a larger issue, I think, with, even in the YouTube community. Like, there's a lot of big YouTubers, they're the fucking same exact thing as a giant outlet. They're the same thing. They operate almost in the same way. The only difference is that it's so personality driven that you just inherently trust that person. There's a difference, but they're getting free games, and they're getting exclusive access. They're making deals behind the scenes for, like, commercials, basically. YouTube's lousy with that stuff, and some people are more transparent about it than others. I mean, as some people probably know, there was a big FTC came down on a lot of, like, the law in terms of YouTube and about disclosures and about people, like, getting paid, you know, doing paid advertisements and not disclosing it. So that's even a problem on YouTube. And it's probably going to be a growing problem now because we got, YouTube Red's coming out, and, like, it's going to further kind of divide, I guess, community? Because that's the thing about, like, YouTube that was supposed to be great about YouTube. It was kind of like the consumer's place to go. For consumers, this is the way I always looked at it anyways. This is when my brother and I started this channel, that was part of it. It was like, we just want, like, regular people talking about games in a way that is kind of broad enough for everybody, but also, like, specific enough for, like, people that are into gaming in more in the way we are. But we kind of talk generally and broadly about stuff, and candidly, and it's nothing that we do is scripted. Like, I kind of don't want to do formal written reviews, and like fucking everybody does that. And there's people out there that do a way better job than I ever could. So I just like doing stuff that's off the cuff, that's honest, that's like that is actually like representative of my experience. And I like talking about games and stuff, so that's really why I do it. This is my outlet, you know, for that kind of stuff. But I don't know, like but YouTube is changing into an IGN, and you have a lot of people, even people that I generally kind of enjoy, like that are coming from these other outlets and starting YouTube channels. Like what is it? One of the most popular things on YouTube, or it's definitely up there in terms of gaming and stuff, is what the Game Over Greggy show, or like Kind of Funny Games and Kind of Funny. Like, those guys are from IGN. That entire crew is from IGN. And they're coming into YouTube and corporatizing it in a weird way, making it like IGN. All the content they produce is very similar to the content they would have produced on IGN. Actually, it's probably a little bit better, because I think they're able to just be a little more casual and candid, and there's kind of less formality there. But they're, using their contacts. They're doing all the things that they would do, like trying to get the same opportunities they had while existing in a corporate entity. And from a business standpoint, you're like, I get it, like, I understand. But from, like, just a consumer who watches shit like this, not so much. Like, I thought, like, the idea, the exclusive access to, like, Metal Gear Solid 5, which I guess Greg Miller and the people over at Kind of Funny had, and even the whole Metal Gear Solid 5 boot camp, which was mostly, it was people from YouTube, it was people from major outlets, like, all going and playing a game for review in a controlled environment like that seems completely fucked. And I think everybody should have said no. Especially, like, I get YouTubers kind of doing it a little bit more, in the sense that, like, really not understanding, I guess, the ethical implications of that, maybe not being completely aware of that, or even thinking about it, because they're just... And that's also one of the problems, one of the traps you can fall into. Like, you might get excited if somebody offers you a free game or a free chance to go play a game somewhere. But you would think that, like, with these major outlets, there would be more of an onus on, like, at least their legal department or somebody there to be like, oh, maybe we shouldn't be a part of that. Maybe we shouldn't do that. How is that how is that serving the customer? It's not. What it is, it's a race to be first. It's a race to have your thoughts out there on the internet first, because it's going to provide hits. And that's it. That's really all. That's what it's about. It's a business, and I think it's got to constantly remind yourself that it's a business. I can't say, like, would I be any different? Like, if I were to, like, say, like, one day find, like, major, massive YouTube success, and would I be like different in terms of what I did and didn't do? Like, I don't know. I think I would, and I think I would because of all the examples that I have now. Kind of seeing how the industry works and kind of paying a little bit more attention to things on that level, and seeing, kind of learning from the mistakes of others. So I think, at this point, but I would say, like, if it was a couple years ago, I probably wouldn't even have really fucking thought about it. You don't think about it on that level. Like, I've been sent review codes for stuff. Just me. Like, it's kind of crazy and weird. I'd never reviewed any of them. I didn't do it. Like, I mean, I didn't review it. Like, I thought one of them I thought was really mediocre. It was a really mediocre game, but it was a really small game, and I knew nobody was really gonna find it. And maybe that's a fault on mine. Maybe I should have reviewed it, but I just didn't review it. I just decided not to, because I was like, it's a small game already. Why shit on it? Because I'm not gonna get on camera, or I'm not gonna do a video and be disingenuous. I'm not going to. But it's a weird thing that goes through your head, like, you feel like some weird, pressures in a weird way. Like, I also write a blog, I've been sent free screeners and stuff like that, and it makes you feel weird. I kind of, I'm not used to it, because I'm just a person. I'm just a guy who does this shit as a hobby, so I'm not, accustomed to, people giving me shit, and then, not only people, but people that directly created shit, giving me, their movie. And then being like, hey, could you write about this? What do you do if you don't like it? It puts, a weird onus on stuff. And it's because I don't have that detachment. Like, I'm not able to have that detached. It's harder for, I think, for people that work for themselves. Like, say if I did YouTube as my full-time job, I'm working for myself ostensibly. Like, then you're in this weird position because you don't have that separation between, like, a marketing team and yourself, like, the critic. There needs to be, like, a third party almost to, like, mediate. So you're not getting, like, direct contact with somebody that, like, made a fucking movie. Like, you don't want, like, them to hand you it. You go into a room, watch it, and then come out and then write about it. Like, while they're looking over your shoulder. That's kind of what it feels like. Because they're waiting for you to write about it. Especially when you're dealing with, like, smaller indie stuff. Not to say that it's like it's not an impossible thing. It's just something you always have to be mindful of. And it's something I noticed just in the few times that I've written stuff. The few movies I've written about that, like, somebody gave me a screener. It definitely made me aware. I was, like, hyper aware of kind of the situation of what was happening. I was, like, hyper aware of the fact that I am critiquing something and this person's probably actually going to look at it. So, with that, you got to keep that kind of stuff in mind, because actually, like, YouTube is becoming, it's more important, I think, in a lot of ways than, like, in terms of selling games and stuff. I think it's way more important than, like, any of the major outlets are nowadays. It's because it's so tangible. Like, you can go and watch somebody play something. And I think, like, in specifically, coming back around to Mad Max, a lot of people watched people play Mad Max and actually wanted to play it. Because the gameplay, the mechanics, like, just the fundamentals of it is solid. Like, it is worth putzing around it. Like, I'll buy Mad Max when it is reduced in price. I will. I don't think it would be good for me. For me, it would not be a good $60 purchase. Because the repetitiveness of it, like, I can't. It was only worth so much time for me. Right now. Like, it's like something I might come back to. I don't know. Although, like, I thought the same thing with Watch Dogs. So Watch Dogs was, a little side tangent here on my Mad Max video. Watch Dogs came out, over a year ago. I played it, I Redboxed it, and I played it on the PS3. It was before I had a PlayStation 4. And I played it for about 6 or 7 hours, and I kind of was like, it was okay. Like, when I first started, I loved it, like, the first few hours, and then as I started doing side stuff, because I always go do side stuff before I start, like, unlocking a lot of the main mission. I kind of like being ahead of the curve when it comes to the main missions, because I don't want any problems. But it got a little repetitive, a little redundant, a little tedious. But, so I went and got it for $10. It was $10 at GameStop. I was like, that's $10. I'll spend $10 on this to revisit this game. And if you go watch my streams, you basically watch me slowly start hating the game. I think there's about, 8 or 9 hours worth of footage so far. I might play a little bit more today, actually, because I think I'm just going to play the whole thing. But you just watch me slowly start, hating the game. And resenting the missions and the mission variety and being able to call what is going to be in a mission just because it is going to be based on things I've already done. Like, that game doesn't really bring much new to the table after the first few hours. And then it just kind of reconfigures things you've already done and just in different orders for missions. And Mad Max is very similar in that respect. I think Mad Max overall is a much better game than Watch Dogs. I enjoy playing Mad Max more. The combat's, it's Batman combat, but it's fun and it works just like it does in Batman. It works. Like, you can trust that you're gonna have a fairly enjoyable time with it. But the stuff that I do get annoyed with is putting stuff behind grind walls for upgrades. Like, you can't upgrade certain things until you do story missions and vice versa, and then you can't do story missions until you've done enough side quests in certain areas. For some reason, it just irks the fuck out of me. I think if you're gonna have an open world game, I should have be able to do as much as I can, as much as I want to, pretty much from the get go. Once you're out of the tutorial kind of parts of the game, after the first few hours and you're opened up into your first area, I think I should be able to get advanced as far in terms of upgrading and clearing out areas and all that stuff as I possibly can. without the game kind of stopping me and saying, nope, you got to do this mission because this is why this part would be available. And I came up against that a few times within the time I spent with Mad Max. And, yeah. So Mad Max is kind of okay. Kind of okay. Like I said, I couldn't recommend a $60 purchase if you're a person that's played a lot of these kind of games. If you haven't played a lot of these kind of games, in which it seems like, the kind of people that buy like 2 or 3 games a year, if that, you know what I mean? Like, I think they're really loving Mad Max, because Mad Max, it has so much content, there is so much to do, and they're not burnt out on the formula. If you've played a ton of open world games, I have a feeling you're going to just get tired of the formula. That's my opinion on it. I think, like, if you're like me, you're just going to be like, yeah, this stuff's all solid, but I've done it all before, and I'm kind of just bored of it now. Like, you can only play so many 50, 60-hour open-world games that kind of do the same thing before you're like, well, fuck this. Like, I need something new. You need to bring something new to the table. And I don't know how well Mad Max did, but, like, it's a shame, too, because I think, like, just like Watch Dogs, like, Mad Max 2 would probably be awesome. And just like I think if they do a Watch Dogs 2, it'll probably be great. It'll probably be awesome. I think they needed that template to learn from and kind of just course correct. A lot of games, the first game are always rough. From Uncharted, like I talked about earlier, to Assassin's Creed. Those games they're like good foundation pieces, but they're incredibly flawed. And usually, in both of those cases specifically, like the second ones are, because some people think it's the best in the series. It addresses all the major mistakes, all the major problems. So, yeah. So with that, I would say Mad Max is worth at least a rental. It's worth a rental, or if you get it for like $20 or $25 sometime in the near future, I'd say it would be worth that. Or if you are a big open world junkie and you just love that kind of stuff, or if you have not played a ton of those kinds of games, I'd say give it a go. Although, I would say you might want to hold out for Just Cause 3 if you have not picked up Mad Max yet. Because I think Just Cause 3 is going to be the open world game of the year. Open world action game, rather, more specifically. The open world game of the year is probably going to be Fallout 4, which hasn't come out yet, so I don't know what the fuck I'm talking about, but I'm just going to assume that Bethesda is going to deliver. They haven't not delivered yet. I mean, there's different varying degrees of whether you think their games are successful or not, but I've liked all of them that I've played, so. Anyways, that's going to do it for me. I'm Shaun, and I will talk to you guys next time I have something to talk about.